Tesla had one of the largest reversals I have seen all year. In today's video, we're going to go through 10 stocks to either buy or short. They're going to be mixed in. We're going to discuss what happened, why we reversed today. After the reversal from yesterday, we're seeing a lot of flim-flam. We're going to explain why it's happening, and let's just jump right into it. So here we are with Tesla. Now, this is really clean. Everyone's aware of this, or you should be. Make sure you have a 5-day moving average in your chart. Also, make sure you subscribe to this channel and click all notifications, because what we go over here is extremely timely. Now, got above, just like here, and just outright rejection. I went through this chart. I can't tell you the last time that you had a move like this. In other words, you actually had a move where you rallied up and then reversed. This is a bearish engulfing, but I couldn't find anyone on the chart that even resembles this, where you had this much force on the way up and this much on the way down. Now, obviously we have earnings, but I think that one of the key issues with it, right, with earnings coming out, this does not look ideal going into earnings on the 19th. So I know we have an understanding of what they might be by looking at the production numbers, but you never know what he's going to say. This is very difficult. Look at this on the weekly. So right here, I mean, it's a perfect break. As soon as you could not hold that 208. Now, if you take this weekly chart and you leave that line and just drill into a 15-minute, okay, there's your line right there. And this is why I always tell people to look at multiple time frames, because if you're looking at multiple time frames, you're going to get a completely different opinion. So it helps. The nuances help. Now all of a sudden it makes sense why you're here, why you stopped here, right? All of a sudden this makes a lot more sense. Why? Because all we did was just drill right into a weekly chart. I would suggest that you get in this habit and do this at the end of every week. But you see this break? So this is actually something we came in long. So in the trading community, I actually was long this, and then we just sold it, and I'll show you exactly what we did. So just so you can understand how tight our stops are. That was the stop. Okay, that was it. That was enough. We made some money, not a lot, and then I just stayed out of the way and waited and waited and waited to see what was going to happen. I didn't want to be in here while it was trying to figure out what it wants to be. Did I think that we were going to see this huge reversal today? No, no one did. Only the people that can tell you after it happened that it happened. And that's no way that you're ever going to really make money. So you need a system. When you started breaking this on the weekly, we shorted it and I bought puts. Puts did okay. It's kind of hard to do puts right now with the VIX at 32 because the implied volatility is up so much. The stock did well, and the bear ETFs did well too as far as the shorts. Made about 5 points max on it at one point, maybe 4 points, 3 points we locked in. You have to kind of look at it now and go, okay, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know if you want to be short of going into earnings. I'm spending a lot of time on this one because it's really pivotal. If this cracks, the Nasdaq's going to crack. I mean, this has kind of been the de facto of the Nasdaq right now. I'm having a hard time believing that. Now, stay to the end because we are going to go through the indexes in greater detail, but I'm having a really hard time just believing that this is going to crack, especially after yesterday. That's the weekly, and here's the daily. So it was critical for us to stay above this. Now, if you take a look at, now the 21 is in silver. Bonk, 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 couldn't get up to it. All right, so let's see if we have another guide that we could use. How about the 10? Okay, we got to the 10 and we rejected. So now we know where our resistance is. We closed right below the 5 again. I did not expect, after being up, this kind of move from that cut down and this move, that you were just going to miraculously explode to the upside and not have the possibility of weakness. That doesn't mean that this is over, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to still put in a bottom. You need to understand this before I start going through the other names. But you do need to pay attention to them. Now, if you're looking at what is going to move and what's not going to move, Tesla to me is just a short, but you are going into earnings. I have a really hard time telling somebody that they need to be getting involved in this SOXS again here. You're really in no man's land. Do you really want to buy this and hope that you can get through this DTL, which you have been unable to get through, which it clearly respects, right? This is where we sold it the other day. We walked through this one in one of the previous videos. Please comment on these videos, it helps me create content. If you let me know what you like or what is helpful, then I can create content around that. Apple is another great example. So this is one where it looked like we were going to, and it gaps over. It looks like we're going to go, pulls right back down. But the difference between Apple and Tesla is the following. Apple is only halfway down. Now, that's not where you want to be either. But we didn't give it all back like we did on Tesla, right? We did not give it all back. So this is really simple. All you're going to want to do is you're going to want to watch that low. If you undercut that low, the people that are still in this trade are going to want to get out of the way. If you just think about it from that perspective, right? Like nobody wants to lose money. So if you're in from that low, from here down, you're going to want to get out of the way, right? That just makes perfect sense if you think about it. Like nobody wants to lose money. Everyone's sick of their ideas and their breakouts not working, right? What I'm saying is you can't go on the premise that we're just going to take out this low. That's not how bottoms are formed, okay? Bottoms are formed like this. They're ugly. You rally up, everyone gets giddy, you gap down the next day, everybody sells, and then you have the single largest rally you've ever had. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but when you look at these particular levels, that is what has been happening. So if you undercut this, to go out there and put a short on that, it's probably not the worst idea. I have a really hard time believing that we're going to take out these lows just like that after all the volume that came in the market yesterday, and we're going to discuss that at the end. It doesn't mean I'm right because you had some little nuances that changed today with government intervention. We're going to get to that in a moment. But I think it's really important for you to look at these names, and I think it's really important during the week to look at these weeklies right now and go, okay, well, is that ideal? No, but you have this little doji here. It's trying to hang in there. We've closed in the same range for the past 3 weeks. That's not something that you want to ignore. And I do want to just point out a major discrepancy that I'm noticing. Software is definitely holding in there and looking better. Okay, look where software is on the bar, right? Versus, see how you tried to hold that 5-day here? So look for stocks that are holding their 5-day. So I would like to see a couple more days in here, and then I'd like to see how this acts. Now you're coming into earnings. Last earnings, this is what we did. And then obviously you gapped down before it. And then that next day you just ran. So I think software earnings are still going to have the potential to be very good. So I would not be looking at these. But if you look at this bar, you're not even halfway down. Very different than Apple, right? And very different than Tesla. Okay. So right now what we're doing is we're just focusing on large cap names. But I would suggest that you look at this. Now, the one sector to me that just looks like it's going to have tons of issues still is going to be semiconductors. And if you followed along this week, you know we were in that SOXS and we traded it several times. I'm just saying, by the way that I'm looking at this and how we're closing, like look at that close. Like you have the single worst close on the video that you've had. So I'm not so sure that when we rally back up or the new leaders are going to be semiconductors. So I would be watching this very, very closely. It's definitely something that is of interest. Now, as far as some kinds of longs that I would be focused on, I find this very interesting, this FAZ, and they keep batting us around to both sides. I've been playing both sides of this, quite frankly. This is the bear, this is the bull. Now, and they're 3X, okay? Now, this rallied specifically because there was a rumor going around that Yellen was going to open up the banks or suggest that the banks are allowed to buy more treasuries. Why is this a good thing? If the banks buy more treasuries, then the yield will drop, right? The yield will drop because you're going to have more demand. People start buying bonds. This was the rumor that was floating around. By the end of the day or midday, it became maybe the government is going to start buying more bonds. Well, Powell's trying to get rid of the balance sheet. She's talking about putting more on, just like they're doing in the UK. That's not what you want to see. I'm interested in both of these, but I would want to be above this 5-day before I even considered this again. I do like what I'm seeing from XLF. It is really fighting this level really closely. Let me show you this level. So I'm fighting this level very, very closely, right? See this down here? I keep trying to get over. I can't. 21, 10, 5, but I'm still above the 5 here on the XLF, and I'm still holding this level. And let me show you why it's so important to look at this. Okay? Because you're sitting right here. This is major support. Major. Okay, this is from the great financial crisis before the crash. This is the pandemic before the crash. The blue line is the 5, the yellow is the 10, and the 21 is in gray. I guess that's gray or silver. And these are obviously monthly numbers. But if you look at this, I want you to take this one point with you. It is going to be literally impossible for this market to bottom or rally unless financials hold. It's just not going to be possible because the underlying pinnings that are going on right now, we have to kind of think about where they're going to be, right? It's not going to be semiconductors. Maybe it'll be software. Maybe it'll be biotech there. But unless we get some foothold financially, especially with what's going on in the UK and the issues that they're having, you'll know from previous videos when we started looking at the guild. But what we're seeing here is complete lack of faith in the financial sector. And that's troubling. And it's the people that are there that are coming out and making these statements and then changing their minds. Don't say anything until you figure out what you're doing, but you want to watch financials more than anything. Energy looked like it was going to be fine, and then all of a sudden it ran right into it. This is from the newsletter. There is a free copy of the newsletter link in description. Make sure you do get that. It is free, and there is something that's going to be offered on Monday morning to only people that get the newsletter. Now, if you take a look at some of the other names that are going on out there, and I want to just point these out for a reason, okay? This is solar. This is the best performing sector. Rallies up, gets over the 5, pulls right back. These closes, when you're seeing these, this is not what you want to see. It's not. This is not what you want to see. This is an outright short. Like there's anything that you're going to go through that is going to have encapsulated the previous bar. If you want a really quick tip, go find anything, any stock, right, that is below the 5-day, 10, 21, 50, right? And you can run this scan. I'll give you a scan to run right here. Below the 50, 21, 10, and in that order, right? So they're all lined up perfectly like that, right? And you can look at after you run your scan. You can do the scan on FinViz. That then has a bearish engulfing. And all I care about your bearish engulfing is that it's body on body, right? Go find those, and there's your entire short list. Because if you crack, all those people that just bought, they have to sell. They don't have to. They can live on, hope and dreams. But the majority of people that know what they're doing are going to use that low of 234.58, and they're going to get the heck out of the way. Okay? They're not going to hold these. They're not going to hold the only stocks that they have gains in for the year and hope that they come back. They're going to start locking this in. Okay? This is an outright short, period. It's not even debatable. Okay? So first, solar, the fact that you broke right here and the way that you're sitting, there's very little to say about it. There's no way that that's probably going to hold, right? I don't know that for sure. Listen to the conviction of my voice, not exactly what I'm saying. You know where I'm going with this. You need to pay attention to names like this. You see how you just broke down here? Okay, so there's 3 names right there, TAN, ENPH, First Solar. There's no way that these hold. Okay, I don't think you want to be putting yourself going into earnings into just bear ETFs, but we should probably just focus on this. We did close back above the 5 on the SPXS. I think that's worth noting. Okay, I think that's worth paying attention to. Let's take a look at the weekly and see if we can learn anything from it. Well, that's pretty obvious, right? If you break out here, here's your V. Some would call this a W. If you could break out here, this could continue to go. I want to preface all this. I don't know if we've bottomed or not. I don't have a clue. But what we do know is that we're seeing consistently names that were once leaders break. There's ENPH breaking the 21 week. Here you are breaking the 10 week for the first time since we rallied. Okay? So that is definitely something that is of interest to me, period. Just there's no way that you shouldn't be interested in these names on the short side, in my opinion. Unless you don't want to short, then don't short. But then I would just stay out of the way, quite frankly, until we figure this out. But names like this, you need to pay attention to. SPXS. Okay, I do think, and then we should talk about the indexes in detail here. I do think that we need to pay attention to what we're seeing. Now, that's the weekly chart. There's your break, and you broke. There's very little to say here. So just by definition, just by understanding that going into earnings, You count to here, right? You take the top of the H or the top of the pivot, right? And then you go from here and you measure. But what you want to do when you measure, right, is you want to do it in a fashion so you have the same percentage. That's 20%. You come here, you move that to 20%, and you put that right there. Okay? Now that that is sitting there, now you have an idea that you could see like 220 just off this move. So that's your trend line right there. You can see your other trend line right here. Okay? So this is coming from somebody that's saying that was a lot of volume yesterday. We could be putting in a bottom, right? We did not undercut all this, right? We're still here. It's not ideal that we rejected. Okay? I'm not saying that, but this is what happens when you have government intervention. When we start seeing things like this, there's very little that we can do about it, right? And I pointed this out in the newsletter. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? These are the 4 biggest buying times that we have seen this year. How did they work out? This one ran up. We all thought it was going to go. We had a negative day for about 4 or 5 days, and then we went up. Okay? Very similar. Came back, retested, then we went up. Went up, kind of retested, undercut, pulled the flim-flam, and then went up. That's what I'm saying. You don't know that this is over. You're going on the premise that this is over, but quite frankly, no one knows. We just don't. So that's something for us to watch. These are very critical levels that we just went over, and I would focus on them. I would also pay attention to TNX. You want to make sure that this stays under 4. If this does not stay under 4, you're going to have an issue. Okay, if you're going to have an issue. Pay attention to the VIX. Didn't rally back up today, did we? Just kind of stayed here, right? So we want to see if we're going to get into this gray area, which has been an area of contention. That's very important. So I want to just reiterate this again. Nobody knows if we bottomed. We have no idea if we've actually put the bottom in. What we're trying to do is we're trying to establish if that's the possibility or not. Coming out and saying that this was so obvious that we were going to reverse yesterday is goofy. It's about as goofy as saying I knew I should have bought the bottom yesterday, right? You don't know what's going to happen. You want to trade what's in front of you. Trade what's going on right now. We can't think past more than 1 or 2 days right now until this settles. And we are at the whims of government intervention. And until that stops, this is going to continue. So that's it. Everybody have a great weekend. Please comment on the video. Please like the video. It helps me greatly with the algorithm. And let me know how you want me to go with the content. I like what we're doing right now. I'm getting some requests to have some guests on and get different opinions. I'm thinking about it. So comment on that if you think it's a good idea, and comment who you think I should have on. Have a great weekend, everybody. Trade to win on Monday.